Hello, good people, and welcome once again to my weekly Doctor Who review. This time around, we're looking at the Serengeti, the Tsundere, the Sermonary, the Tsuranga Conundrum. And you know, it's weird to think of this as being the halfway mark of the season, but here we are on episode 5 out of 10. It honestly still feels like we're just getting started, or is that just me? Anyway, regarding this episode, I went into it with very, very measured expectations, seeing as online it seems like everyone is just lining up to bar their fangs at it. With the ironic exception of Diamanda Hagen of all people, who literally called this the best one since Mummy on the Orient Express. Really? And yet, having now sat down with the episode, I really almost agree with her. And this isn't the case like Arachnids in the UK, where I admit to being able to enjoy that episode while still being easily able to see where everyone's problems with it lie. I'm genuinely baffled at the seemingly near-universal negativity that people are throwing at the Tsuranga Conundrum. Not gonna mince words, I think this is only behind Rosa, second best of the crop so far, in my opinion. I really liked this one, which is a relief for me since I went into it expecting that the best case scenario would be I have some shallow entertainment for an hour with an episode that doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. I don't know why I also assumed that this episode wouldn't be written by Chibnall. I knew that there would be a stretch of episodes by other writers, but it's honestly kind of surprising to see the guy's name on 5 episodes in a row. I'll say right off the bat that I think that decision has been to Series 11's detriment. At least as far as critical reception goes. I really hope that for Series 12, Chris decides to spread out his workload a little bit more. But I suppose most of you want me to start explaining myself as to why I not only enjoy this thing, but think it's a genuinely solid episode. So let's get right into it. In keeping with Chibnall as a guy who I think tends to write pretty interesting episode concepts, this one follows the TARDIS crew after they all literally take a sonic explosion to the face, and wake up on a hospital ship thousands of miles away from the TARDIS, with no way off, a couple of other eclectic patients for company, and a bizarre, little, adorable, disgusting creature known as the Pating running around wrecking the place, literally eating the ship around them in search of energy. And first things first, I love this freaking thing. Like seriously, I know for a fact that I'm not the only guy who sees this and immediately thinks the love child of Stitch and Upchuck from Ben 10. True, it is ultimately just another monster performing the basic base under siege act, but I think that's more than made up for by the fact that we don't really get creatures like this all that often on this show, and also the fact that I think he's one of the better visual effects that this show has ever had. Seriously, I haven't seen anyone else talking about this episode comment on how well done the CG on this thing was. To me, he felt like he was always in the room opposite the real actors, which for this show and computer-generated creatures is astonishing. I'll also say that this episode handles a larger ensemble cast way better than Arachnids did, to the point that this episode and that one almost feel like they were written by 2 different people. Each of the TARDIS team gets a good moment to themselves, and I especially like Ryan, who gets to reflect a bit on his awkward relationship with his father through the lens of the pregnant alien Yas who's about to become a dad himself. Graham gets a solid moment or two to himself as well, both in that plotline and also speaking to Darkus, an engineer who's on board the ship with his, unbeknownst to him, terminally ill-decorated fighter pilot sister, Eve. As an older brother myself, I think the two of them honestly have a pretty relatable sibling dynamic. And as Eve's fate draws nearer and nearer, I find myself really sympathizing with the both of them. Eve also has a robotic assistant named Ronan, who, being an android, doesn't really get the most opportunities for deep characterization, but who surprisingly has 1 or 2 moments of genuine pathos that I appreciate. Yaz unfortunately remains the one member of the TARDIS team who I feel is a bit static, although I expect that will be quickly made up for with next episode, which seems to be focusing on her a lot. I've heard complaints that I can't necessarily disagree with that the previous episode didn't really give Dr. 13 the best showcase. Thankfully though, I think the Tsuranga Conundrum shows just how well of a grasp Chibnall and Jodie have on the Doctor's character. To me, there's 3 standout moments for the Doctor's character writing in this episode. One where she's talking to the Tsuranga's head doctor Astos in what amounts to a realigning of perspective. The team has just been separated from the TARDIS, as the Doctor learns, for 4 whole days, and the Doctor has spent the last few minutes in a frenzy running around the ship trying to get a handle on the situation. Now, normally in a situation like this, the audience, knowing just how attached to the TARDIS the Doctor is, would be made to sympathize firmly with her, and anyone who's trying to get her to stop mucking about with things and take a breath would be seen as an antagonistic force. But when Astos informs the Doctor that she is in fact being selfish and not considering the fact that there are other people whose health is at stake on this ship, and that the only two health professionals on board can't afford to spend all their time getting her to stop messing with their spacecraft, the Doctor and the episode actually take a moment to breathe and realize that he's right. I really like that. And it's one of many ways that this episode benefits from being an hour long again. I feel like if this one were 45, then we'd doubtless be in the Doctor's headspace of constantly rushing through the whole episode, and that would have made for a more fast-paced and eclectic, but also far shallower adventure. The other moment that sticks out to me is when she's speaking to the nurse, Mably, about the power of imagination and hope, in yet another brief monologue that I think defines this character. I'm a doctor of medicine, science, engineering, candy floss, Lego, philosophy, music, problems, people, hope. Mostly hope. Hope doesn't offer itself up, you have to use your imagination. Imagine a solution and make it a reality. Whole worlds pivot on acts of imagination. I swear I live for stuff like that. Finally, there's the Doctor geeking out over the ship's antimatter drive, and the little science lesson that she gives about it. Honestly, geeking out almost feels like a massive understatement. Jodie is literally playing it like she wants to make love to the thing. Overall, I think the Doctor shines in this episode. Unfortunately, the cast does have what I consider to be two weak links, namely the Dr. Astos and Nurse Mably. With Astos, I don't actually think the guy is all that poorly written. Unfortunately, the guy playing him gives what's probably the weakest performance that's been on this show in a long time. He is astonishingly wooden, although thankfully he's out of the episode before very long, leaving us with Mably, who has to fill his shoes. In an arc that's interesting conceptually, but I don't think the episode quite pays it off well. To be fair, with a cast this big, I think it's pretty impressive that only two characters don't totally work, and not even entirely for writing reasons. My only other complaint with the whole episode is honestly just a shallow disappointment that we never got to see them actually get back to the TARDIS. But I really can't complain about that too much, since I think the ending the episode does give us is honestly kinda powerful. It's not gonna make anyone tear up or anything, but I really appreciate the sentiment. Overall, I think the Serendipity Doodah, the Sears half-off sale, the Sunohara, the Tsuranga Conundrum, is an episode that really benefits from being more of an ensemble character piece than an exciting bit of sci-fi adventure, although it still has plenty of that in my humble opinion. To my mind, it more than makes up for the numerous deficiencies of the last episode, and is honestly maybe the strongest script that Chibnall's written by himself in a long time, if not ever. I know that a lot of people watching this video are probably going to be giving me weird looks, but I can't help it. The more I talk and think about this one, the more I enjoy it. It's an easy highlight of the series so far, and it's got my excitement levels for the next few weeks back up again. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this one. I think I'm gonna go for a bit more of a streamlined, less rambly approach to these from now on. I don't know, let me know in the comments how you feel about the presentation of this one versus my previous reviews. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more, follow me on Twitter, all that jazz. And for those of you that are already subscribed, you might find that between this review and the next one, I'm gonna be doing a different video. One that's a bit of a change of pace.